Welcome back to Switched to Linux. Today we are going to continue our discussion of GnuCash, and we are going to do all about invoice reports on GnuCash. Of course, this is if you need to print or email an invoice. Maybe you need to keep a track of, you need to print them for your own purposes. There's a lot of things that you might need to do with invoices. And so we're going to look at the default report invoices. We are going to look at how to create your own utilizing style sheets. And then we're going to talk about saving configuration reports. And this saving configuration reports is going to come up again and again in this series because that is really the thing that makes GnuCash so powerful. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump on over to our computer where we are doing our test. Now, to start with, one of the things that I did is I went ahead and I created a generic logo. If you remember, we created a company that is called Our New Corp. And so I just created this, very generic logo. And then we have a smaller version that we're going to need. Here's kind of a bigger version. And then we did some backgrounds. And so I wanted to have the ability to have a nice watermark background behind the logos. So we're going to do that. Now, the size specifications you want for your backgrounds, if you want like a watermark background, 750 pixels wide, 800 pixels high. Just note those because, man, that takes a while to get figured out right. You can see I have 6 of them here. There, I was trying to remember what I was actually using. And then my actual logo height we're going to be using is 100 pixels high. And we'll talk about what those are doing in all of the different places. Now, eventually, we're going to get to the point where we can print out an invoice, and it's going to look something similar to this. Of course, I don't like that bright yellow, but I'll show you how to change that. That's all right. So, inside of our GnuCash here, of course, we ended last time. We talked about entering customers and how to create and even record invoices. So we created an invoice, we recorded it, and then we even showed you how to process the payment. So they've already paid you. Now you need to mail a copy of that invoice to a customer. So you're going to need to do that. Now, GnuCash has a series of reports. So under our report tab, we have a variety of different things. Under our business, we actually have 3 different reports that you could print. One of these is the easy invoice. One of these is called the fancy invoice, and one of these is called the printable invoice. So if you open one of these guys up, you'll see it'll just open up and it says this. There's no valid invoice selected. So you need to select your options. It is this guy here with the gear on my individual build here. It says edit report options. You can alternatively find it under report options under your edit menu. So what you need to do is come down here and select the invoice. So I just happen to know the invoice we're doing has a 4 in it. If you don't know what it is, usually I just pull down the thing and go by customer. So now if I just grab this guy here, select it, and push apply, this is the printable invoice. So you can see it's just kind of full screen. It's nice, it's simple. And if I were to go ahead and output this to a file, then this form here is automatically going to override it. So this is what this looks like, which, hey, there's really nothing wrong with this invoice, to be perfectly honest. It's clean, it's simple, it'll go to where it is. It just has some basic information on it, but it is devoid of your branding, and that's something a lot of people want to have, I mean, unless you're printing it out on like a letterhead or something, or you have some paper. This would be perfect, print it through that letterhead. But if you actually want to print it out, that's kind of what we're going to be covering here. So let's go ahead and close this. Let's look at some of the other reports. So we can also do an easy invoice. Once again, we just need to come over here and let me go, not 74, just 4. Find this guy, select this guy, apply. And this is what this one looks like. Again, very clean, very simple. If we were to output this one, you'll see it's going to look very similar to the last one. So again, no real issues with it, no real branding, no real anything. All right, so the fancy invoice is your ability to start doing something a little interesting. All right, so again, let's go ahead and grab our invoice here. And you can see here we have all sorts of stuff. We got our name over here. We have our full address, indicates it's an invoice. Here's the invoice number, the dates, where it's going to. Way too many lines. We have a lot of stuff down here. Now, all of those different options we have, you can see that inside of this, we just went in here and just selected the invoices here. All right. So there is a variety of different things that you can do. If we were using taxes, tax would show up. We could actually click off our quantity and our price here, and you'll see that that will get rid of things over here. So if you just want to do a description and a total, you can do that. Of course, with everything I do the quantity and the price personally. So there's where you can add those items. You can leave on or leave off the total. You can leave on or leave off the description. Now, the other thing that we have under our display, these are the things that we find inside of the fancy invoice. So individual taxes, the totals are these columns down here. So if I were to kick off these columns here, I thought that's what those columns were. There's references, billing terms. I think billing terms, these might be on various different places on this thing. There's so many different items where there are. Now, payments, the extra notes there is down at the bottom. Thank you for your patronage. So if you want to just change this to anything, just type it here. See, that'll change to blah. If you just want to leave it entirely off, just leave that blank. You can turn on or turn off the payable. Of course, here in the States, we generally spell checks like this. So if you wanted to do that, and then company contact, we can go ahead and do this. And this is polling from, I'm not sure where this is polling from. That might be one of the options. I might have set it to switch to Linux instead of our new corp in the system. But I'm just going to kick that one off. That way we have one item down at the bottom. Now, the minimum number of entries, this is how many lines we have here. So if you just kind of drop this down to 10, and in fact, that's what I did for my sample, because if there's too many, it's always going to bleed it over to an extra line. And generally, you don't need that many lines anyway. If you do, it's better not to have a ton of blank lines as it is. Under our display columns, we already did that. And then the last item here is you have a variety of style sheets. Now, I added the style sheet called Invoice, and I'm going to show you how to do that. But inside of here, there are a variety of different style sheets you can pick from. So you can grab these guys here. We'll all do different types of things. See, the header and tail gives you extra stuff added to it, and Technicolor is this one here. Now, I'm not going to show you the invoice one because I created that. So here's what we're going to do is if I want to create a new invoice, we're going to do a style sheet. So under Edit, we want to come down and there's this option called Style Sheets at the bottom. This here will dictate various style sheets that you can use on a variety of reports. So here's a default, easy, footer, head, tail. Of course, invoice is the one that we are working with. So if you want to create a new one, then you actually start with whatever one it is, and you hit new. This makes a difference because if I were to create a new one based on the template of easy, there's different options than if I do one based on the template of fancy. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. We're just going to call this one delete because we're not going to keep it. We're going to keep this one based on the easy template. Now, inside of here, this is alternating table cells, which is, every other table cell is going to be a different color. So you're going to have white and then some other color, white, some other color. Here are the fonts that you're going to use. Here is just a background color and a background image, and you can enable or disable links, hyperlinks in the report, and then this is a little bit about the spacing. You can see there's not a lot of different items there, so I'm actually going to delete this one. We'll create a new, and then if you were to grab the fancy, we do need to give it a name though. Let's call this one delete. And we will call this one based on the fancy template. Now you will have a variety of different colors: our background color, our text, our cells, our link color, alternate cell color, subheadings, grand total colors. Here's, of course, our fonts. Under our general, we have a variety: preparer, prepared for. If you remember those in the list, you can show or hide this basic information here as well. Under images, now we have 3 images: the background tile, the header image, and the logo, and then we can indicate where the direction of the header image happens to be. And then tables: what is our table spacing, what is our table border width, so you can do a variety of different things. Okay, so when you create your new invoice, now you have the option to go in and create a new report with that template. So let's go ahead and go in here. Let's create a fancy invoice, and we are going to create the fancy invoice based on my template there. All right. So let's apply this. Now, though, we're going to come down here and we're going to grab invoice. Now, when I do this, we get a screen that looks like this. Now, don't be alarmed that this guy is kind of bleeding all over the place. That is scaling based upon the size of your window. It is a little bit clumsy. I wish they would not do that. But like I said, if you're doing a background watermark, if you make it 750 pixels wide by 800 pixels high, then what you're actually going to get is it's going to center that, it's going to space it out, and this is what you're going to get. Inside of your fancy here, we have our display columns. There's too many of them. Let's drop this down to 10. I'm going to say there's a setting I'm going to show you where you don't have to keep on messing with all this stuff. That's what we're going to build to. All right, so here I can come in and I can turn on or turn off a variety of different things. You'll see every time I go in and create this fancy invoice, it keeps on adding all these things that I didn't want at the bottom. Let's make checks payable to. Let's not show this column. Okay, but now you'll notice that I really don't like this coloration, and so let's go ahead and fix that. So with this invoice open, we're just going to go ahead and edit the invoice live. Now you are going to have to go in and refresh this. I'll show you how to do that. But here you'll see I don't like the grand total section. Let's make that maybe blue instead. So let's go ahead and apply that. And we're going to come up here. And what I found is if you just kick off and then jump back down, hit apply, now it's going to apply our colorations. All right, we can actually go with a custom color as well. Let's look at what that looks like. Okay, so I like that one a little bit better. So here we have a nice looking invoice. Everything is good. Now, before we jump off this page, I'm going to talk a little bit about these images. So we have 3 images here, and one of these is the background tile. That, of course, is our watermark background. Okay, that's easy enough to understand. Now, we have banner, headering banner, which will actually get you kind of in line with where this logo is, but it's going to go over here in the center instead. So let me show you what that's going to look like. So for the purpose of this, we're going to grab the one that has the address attached to it. And then we will, of course, need to come in here and update this. So you see what it's going to do here is it's going to give us this banner image here. Right now it's on the right. We also have a center option and we have a left option. Okay, so this is going to move this image to the various places. Now the logo always sits up here in this orientation. So if I were to clear these guys both out, what you will notice is that the invoice is going to print more centered. So let's go ahead and show you what this looks like printed. Okay, so there's that output to my PDF. Okay, so you see that everything kind of centers like this. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to put our logo back in. And again, our logo was our logo 2 so that we didn't bleed onto multiple different lines there. Okay, and now when we push our print to file button, so the logo's over here, and it will actually push this off a little bit to the side based on how wide your logo is. Now, on my personal one where I'm actually using it in production, I don't use the logo option. I use the banner option, even though it's the same thing, because it's going to make sure everything is centered. And I want the whole thing to be centered. I don't like it how it sits off center like this. That's kind of a personal thing, a personal choice where you want. So if you're fighting with this and you're saying, I really want this invoice part to be centered, it's because don't use the logo section, use the banner section instead. So let me show you what that's going to look like. Let's go down to images. Let's clear this one. Let's go ahead and use my logo here, and let's use the center option. Apply this. Now you'll see that everything just centered in the report. And when I hit my output to file, now we have it with our logo at the top, and now everything is centered. Whoa, I did not show you that right. There it is. Logo at the top, everything is now centered. So that's how you pull that off. So if you're looking to do something like that. All right, so now that we have gone through, you can see that you don't want to come in here every single time, pull down your fancy invoice, and then have to worry about making all these adjustments, dropping your minimum number of table rows down to 10. You don't want to reset your style sheets, all this kind of stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a report. Now to do this, once we have this working right, I'm actually going to come in here and I'm going to, I need to get this cleared out. So let's go ahead and do this. Come in here, cancel this, and now I'm going to hit apply. So it kind of goes back to this view here where our invoice is set, our tables are set up, our text is set up, our display columns are set up the way we like, everything is good and everything is set up, but it's asking us for an invoice. Now what we're going to do is under reports, we have this option down here that says save report configuration or save report configuration as. So I'm going to go ahead and call this new invoice and close. So now instead of coming into reports, I'm actually going to come down to save configuration reports, new invoice, double click it, and now I can just go right on into selecting my invoice, and everything is already set. So here we already have all of the settings on the invoice set, our style sheet is set, everything is set, our invoice is ready to go. So that is your power of your save configuration reports. We are going to use save configuration reports repeatedly over this tutorial. So learn how that thing works. So what we basically did is we came down, we went into our business, we found the report that was the closest that we wanted, we changed all the configurations, set all the style sheets, fixed the style sheet, and then kicked off the invoice, saved the configuration. Now, if you were to save the configuration like with the invoice in here, so let's save configuration as, we're just going to call this delete because we don't want this one. Okay. If you were to save it with that invoice in there, you come down, hit save report configurations, it'll always kick up with that invoice in here. Now you have to go through the extra step of deleting the thing out. It's way better to save the configuration report without an invoice in here so that you don't accidentally send a customer the wrong invoice. All right, so there is going through our invoices. So we've looked at the 3 types of default reports. We've looked at how to create style sheets. We talked a little bit about the backgrounds and the logos. We looked at those 3 image placements and then how to save and recover a configuration report. So with that being said, Let us know the next topic we should be covering. I think somebody wants me to cover pretty soon how to do employees and things like that. We also want to get some good QuickBooks looking report configurations. I want to show you how to do that eventually, but we need a little bit more data in here first. So we're going to have to go in here, add in some more data, add in some customers, add in some vendors, do all that kind of stuff so we have enough data to start collecting things. So thanks for watching this video here, this tutorial on GnuCash. Hopefully this is getting you better towards having much better, much prettier invoices. Thanks for watching. Watch the rest of the playlist of this video, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.